I placed photos of him with his mistress in his own daughter's wedding album, and the betrayed husband saw everything right there in front of me. My name is Madeline, I'm 84 years old, and that sentence you just heard sums up the most pivotal moment of my life. But to understand how I got there, you need to know the whole story. A story of pain, betrayal, but above all, overcoming and revenge. A revenge so sweet that it changed not only my life, but everyone involved. But before we begin, my dears, do this grandmother a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that my story is reaching people all across Brazil. This story needs to reach many women who are going through what I went through. Let's go back in time. It was 1975, a very different era from today. I was 34 years old and had been married for 15 years to Robert Franklin. We lived in Ribeirão Preto, São Paulo's interior, a medium-sized city where everyone knows each other, and gossip spreads faster than a fire truck. Roberto was the most sought-after wedding photographer in the city and surrounding region. Every weekend he had 2 or 3 weddings to shoot. The prominent families wouldn't let their daughters marry unless Roberto was the one documenting the occasion. He had that gift, you know, making people look even more beautiful in photos than they did in real life. I met Roberto when I was 18. He was 23 and already working as an assistant in a studio at the time. He was stunning, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with shiny black hair slicked back with pomade every single day. He had a mustache he cared for more meticulously than I did, spending hours trimming and shaping it. The girls would swoon whenever he walked by. I married a virgin, as was the custom then. The church was packed, and my mother had spent months sewing my dress, along with my veil and tiara. Roberto looked handsome in his suit. I remember the pride I felt walking down the aisle, seeing the envy in the eyes of the other girls. I had landed the most desirable catch in town. The beginning was good. Roberto was loving and attentive. We built the studio together. He photographed. I developed the photos, organized, and handled the administrative side. We were a team. At least that's what I thought. The kids came quickly. John was born in 1961, a year after the wedding. Anna in 1963. Peter in 1965. 3 children in 5 years. My life became a routine of diapers, bottles, the house, the husband, and the studio, but I didn't complain. That was just how things were. The woman took care of the house and the children, helped her husband with whatever he needed. Roberto was always vain. As the studio grew, so did his vanity. He bought expensive clothes, French perfume, and Swiss watches. He said he needed to make a good impression on clients. I kept wearing my simple cotton dresses and flat shoes, the kind suitable for someone who spends all day on their feet. The money was ours, but the decisions were his. The first suspicions arose in 1973. Roberto started coming home late more often. Meetings with clients, estimates to prepare, places to visit. There was always an excuse: the scent of a different perfume on his clothes, lipstick on the collar of his shirt, which he claimed belonged to the bride's mother, who was simply too affectionate. But 1975 was different. That was the year everything fell apart. Or rather, the year I finally opened my eyes. March 1975. Autumn was beginning, the leaves on the trees turning yellow. Roberto was hired to photograph the wedding of the year. The Rodriguez family, the father, Anthony Rogers, owned 3 coffee farms. The mother, Lucy Rodriguez, came from a traditional family in São Paulo. The daughter, Cristina, who had graduated in education, was marrying Henry, a newly graduated doctor, the son of the hospital owner. The first time I saw Mrs. Lucia was in our studio. She walked in as if she owned the place. She was 45 but looked 35. Platinum blonde, the kind who goes to the salon every week wearing imported linens, stiletto heels, and carrying a handbag worth more than 3 months' rent. Her perfume filled the room. "You must be the Oliveras," she said, but only looked at Roberto. I've heard wonderful things about his work. Roberto was completely captivated. He pulled out a chair for her, offered coffee, water, and showed her the portfolio. I stayed in an invisible corner. When I tried to join the conversation by showing some albums I had organized, she cut me off. "Darling, could you please get me a glass of ice water? This heat is killing me." The way she said "darling" was devoid of warmth. It was dismissive, as if she were speaking to a maid. Roberto didn't defend me. He just kept showing the photos, explaining angles and lighting. The first visit to the Rodriguez mansion was at the end of March. It was meant to check out the party location, see the lighting, and plan the photos. I went along, as I always did. The house was a colonial 2-story, huge garden, pool, tennis court. It could fit about 5 houses like ours inside it. Mrs. Lucia received us dressed in pure silk and pearls. She looked me up and down, saw my patterned cotton dress and my flat shoes. "Roberto, dear, you came and brought—" She paused as if she had forgotten my name. "Madeline, my wife," Roberto completed. "Of course, Madeline, how lovely." The way she said "lovely" made it clear it wasn't a compliment. During the visit, she didn't leave Roberto's side. She touched his arm when she spoke, laughed too much at his lame jokes, and complimented everything. "Oh, Roberto, you have an artistic eye. Roberto, those big hands must hold the camera nicely. Roberto, you're so professional, so dedicated. Roberto, Roberto." My name she pretended to forget. On the third visit, Roberto said it would be better for me to stay at the studio. "Madeline, you organize things better here. There's just client talk technical details over there. You'd get bored. But I always go with you." "I know, love, but Mrs. Lucia is kind of demanding. It'll be easier if I go alone." I should have insisted. I should have suspected, but I trusted him. 15 years of marriage, 3 children, a life built together. The visits became more frequent and longer. He would leave at 2 p.m., return at 8 or 9 p.m., always with an excuse. Mrs. Lucia wanted to see the garden with night lighting. She wanted to test different angles in the hall. She wanted to discuss decoration details. One day in early April, he came home with wet hair. "Was it raining?" I asked. "No." "Why?" "Your hair is damp." "Oh, I stopped by the barber. I needed to go." But the cut was the same, and the smell wasn't from the barber he usually went to. It was a different, expensive imported soap. Our neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, was the one who threw the first stone at my window of illusions. It was a Thursday, mid-April. She came over for coffee like she did every week. A widow in her 60s, she knew everything about everyone in town. "Madeline, dear, I need to tell you something." "What is it, Mrs. Carmen?" "It's about Roberto." My heart sank. "What's wrong with him?" "I saw his car yesterday at the Flamengo Motel. It was around noon. The Flamengo Motel was on the edge of town. Everyone knew what it was for. A discreet place with separate entrances and exits, rooms with private garages. It must be a mistake. Roberto was working." Mrs. Carmen looked at me with sympathy, that look of someone who knows more than they're letting on. "Honey, his car has the studio sticker. It's unmistakable. Maybe he went to take pictures nearby." "I don't know, Madeline, Mrs. Carmen, please. Roberto would never do that." She sighed and changed the subject, but the warning was clear. That night, Roberto came home at 9 and said he had gone to photograph the Rodriguez farm. Mrs. Lucia wanted sunset photos of the farm for the album. "It must have been beautiful," I said, serving reheated dinner. "It was a wonderful place. I took great photos. Mrs. Lucia went along." He paused with his fork mid-air, looked at me with suspicion. "Why do you ask?" "Nothing. Just curious." She seems very invested in the details. It's her only daughter's wedding. It's natural to want everything perfect. We ate in silence, but something shifted that night. The seed of doubt was planted. The visits continued. Now I was noticing the little details. The wrinkled shirt, the different perfume, the mismatched times, the increasingly elaborate excuses. 2 weeks before the wedding, Roberto had to go to São Paulo to pick up new equipment, special lenses, and imported film. He would be gone for 2 days. "Do you really need to go?" I asked. "I do. Mrs. Lucia is paying for the best gear. I can't let her down. Always Mrs. Lucia." While he was away, I decided to organize the office, file negatives, catalog photos, update the client book. That's when I found it. It was in an unlabeled folder at the back of a drawer, negatives I hadn't seen before. They weren't from our usual work. They were different. I held them up to the light. My heart stopped. Roberto and Mrs. Lucia in the mansion's garden, embracing, kissing his hands in her hair, her hands on his chest. Several photos from different angles, probably taken with a timer. I felt weak in the chair. My legs gave out. 15 years, 3 children, a lifetime, and there it was. Black and white betrayal laid bare. My first impulse was to tear it all up, burn it, destroy the proof, as if that could erase the truth, but I didn't do that. I put the negatives back exactly where they were and started to plan. Roberto came back from São Paulo on Friday. He brought the new lenses, imported films, and even a gift for me, a silk scarf. Guilt. A man's gift of guilt always comes at the worst possible time. For you, my love, I saw it in a shop window and thought of you. I took the scarf. Beautiful, expensive, completely unlike my style. Thank you, it's lovely. He kissed me on the forehead. That automatic kiss from years of marriage. Neither passion nor affection, just habit. How was it here? Everything okay with the kids? All good. John is studying for college entrance exams. Anna fought with her boyfriend again. Peter broke a window playing ball. Normal life, family routine. Meanwhile, the negatives burned in my memory. Roberto and Lucia embraced, kissing. The images wouldn't leave my mind. And the studio? Any news? I organized the files, catalogued the old negatives. He stopped unpacking his bag and looked at me. All the negatives, most still needing a lot of organizing. He went back to pulling clothes out of the bag, breathing a sigh of relief. He thought I hadn't noticed. Little did he know. The wedding was the following Saturday. 1 week, 7 days to plan my revenge. But what revenge? Tell her husband everything, cause a scene at the church, confront Roberto? I considered all the possibilities while washing dishes, ironing clothes, and cooking. The automatic chores of a housewife freed my mind to strategize. It was on Tuesday that the idea came to me. Roberto was in the lab developing photos of a baptism. I was organizing the albums ready for delivery when I saw it. The Rodriguez wedding album was already prepared. The dividers marked, the spaces defined, only the photos were missing. And if the idea was so bold it made me tremble, the more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I went back to the office, grabbed the compromising negatives, took them to the lab, and locked the door. Developing photos wasn't difficult for me. Years of helping Roberto meant I knew the entire process, chemicals, timing, temperatures. But I had never done it alone, always under supervision. With trembling hands, I prepared the trays. Acid, developer, fixer. The red light of the lab cast a sinister glow over the room. First, negative in the enlarger, Roberto and Lucia in the garden. He was holding her face, moments before the kiss. Focus, adjust, exposure. The image appeared on paper like magic. First the outlines, then the details, his passionate face, her triumphant smile, the intimacy between them, bodies. I developed 3 photos. The most compromising, the clearest, the most devastating. I dried them, stored them in an envelope, and went back to the bedroom. Roberto was sound asleep, snoring. He had no idea that the woman beside him had just sealed his fate. The next few days became a torturous act. Pretending to be normal, cooking, cleaning, smiling, chatting about the weather, the kids, work. The Rodriguez wedding is going to be the event of the year, Roberto said at Thursday's dinner. I can imagine. Important family, 500 guests, imported decorations, French catering. How chic. Mrs. Lucia has refined taste. Mrs. Lucia, always her. Are the albums ready for delivery? He asked. Almost all, just need the Rodriguez album. Let me put this one together. It's special. No need, I can handle it. I know exactly how Mrs. Lucia wants it. He looked at me surprised. Really? Of course. I pay attention to the details. I know what pleases the clients. He accepted. He trusted me. He always did, at least in this matter. Friday, the day before the wedding. Roberto left early to check equipment, test the lighting at the church. I stayed in the studio assembling the album. It was a work of art. Modesty aside, genuine leather cover, special paper pages, silk paper dividers, every detail designed to impress. I had already seen the wedding photos, Roberto proudly showing them off. They were perfect, the beautiful bride, the emotional groom, the decorated church, the elegant guests. I carefully arranged the bride's arrival, the entrance into the church, the vows, the rings, the kiss, the exit, the rice shower, every moment in its rightful place. And then in the middle of the album, between the photos of the waltz and the bouquet, I inserted the others. The 3 photos developed that night. Roberto and Lucia hugging, Roberto and Lucia kissing, Roberto and Lucia with their hands where they shouldn't be. I enlarged them enough to leave no doubt, no room for denial, no way to explain away. I closed the album, wrapped it in special paper with a golden bow, adding a card with the studio's greetings. Perfect. Saturday dawned sunny, blue sky, no clouds, a perfect day for a wedding or for revenge. Roberto left early. He had to photograph the bride's preparations. I was busy getting the kids ready. John complaining about his suit, Anna crying because her dress was too tight, Peter wanting to stay home. "Mom, do I really have to go?" John asked for the 10th time. "Yes, you do. It's your dad's work commitment." "But it's boring, a wedding of people I don't even know." If only he knew. We arrived at the church at 4 o'clock. Roberto was already there, equipment set up. The church looked splendid, imported flowers, a red carpet, chamber music. The guests were arriving, the elite of Ribeirão Preto, farmers, industrialists, politicians, doctors, lawyers, everyone who was someone in the city. I saw Mrs. Lucia arrive, dressed in navy blue, fitted just right, but with a neckline that was a bit much. For the mother of the bride it was too daring, but she could pull it off. She had the figure for it. Our eyes met. She saw me, forced a smile, and waved from afar, keeping up a facade of politeness. The ceremony was moving. Christina looked beautiful. A French lace dress, tulle veil, and a crown of fresh flowers. She looked like a princess. Roberto was photographing everything, professional and focused. Occasionally, he exchanged glances with Mrs. Lucia. Looks they thought no one noticed, but I did. I always did. I just pretended not to. The reception was at the recreation club, grand hall cinematic decor, and a buffet that felt like a royal banquet. Roberto kept photographing. I mingled among the guests, greeting acquaintances, complimenting dresses, chatting about the weather. Around 10 p.m., I ran into Mr. Antonio, the father of the bride. He was on the terrace, smoking a cigar. "Mrs. Madeline, what a pleasure to see you." "Good evening, Mr. Antonio. Lovely party." My wife didn't hold back. "Christina deserves the best." "Absolutely." "Your daughter is radiant. She's my princess, always has been." We made small talk about business and the coffee harvest. A polite, hard-working man. He didn't deserve what he was about to learn. Around midnight, we started saying our goodbyes. Roberto still had a few more photos to take. The cake cutting, the bouquet toss, the newlyweds exit. "I'll take the kids," I told him. Peter was asleep on his feet. "Go ahead. I'll finish up here and meet you at home." He looked at Mrs. Lucia. She discreetly waved. They thought they were subtle. Fools. Sunday was a normal day. Morning mass, family lunch. In the afternoon, Roberto went to the lab to develop the wedding photos. I stayed in the living room crocheting while the kids played in the yard. "They turned out great," he said as he came out of the lab. "The best photos I've ever taken." "That's wonderful. The Rodriguez will love them, definitely." He hesitated. He was going to say, "Mrs. Lucia," but held back. On Monday, I spent time selecting photos for the album. Roberto was right. They were amazing. He really had talent. It was a shame he wasn't content with just taking pictures. On Tuesday morning, I put together the final album. With the same care, the same perfection, and those 3 compromising photos right in the middle. "Is it ready?" I called out to Roberto. "You can deliver it." He looked at the wrapped package. "Don't you want to check it?" I know it's perfect. Confidence. He trusted me. Ironically, the delivery was scheduled for Wednesday at 3 p.m. The studio's custom. We always delivered in person. It was part of the premium service we charged for. On Wednesday, I had a poor lunch, my stomach churning, hands sweating, heart racing. It was the day. "Are you okay?" Roberto asked. "You look pale. I think you ate something that didn't agree with you." "Do you want to stay? I can go alone?" "No, I'm coming with you. It's all over now." At 2:30, we got in the car, the album in the back seat, the ticking time bomb wrapped in golden paper. The drive to the Rodriguez mansion had never seemed so short. Each block felt like a second closer to the explosion. Each red traffic light was just a delay of the inevitable. Iron gate, immaculate garden, the same house where it all began, where Roberto and Lucia embraced. where they kissed, where they betrayed me. The maid answered, her uniform starched. Good afternoon, you're expected. Waiting room, colonial furniture, Persian rug, paintings by famous artists, everything designed to impress, to show power. Mrs. Lucia appeared, dressed in beige linen pearls around her neck, a barely disguised smile of triumph. Roberto, Madeline, what punctuality. She hugged Roberto warmly. She greeted me with 2 air kisses. Antonio is in the office. He'll be right with you. Would you like something? Coffee, water? We're fine, thank you, I replied. We sat down, Roberto on the sofa, me in the armchair, Mrs. Lucia in the other armchair, crossing her legs. Her skirt rode up a few inches. Roberto noticed. Of course he noticed. Mr. Antonio entered. Gray suit, understated tie, firm handshake. Sorry for the delay. Business call. No worries, we just arrived, Roberto said, and then they brought the photos. Roberto took the package and handed it over proudly. The best work of my career. Donna Lucia opened the package, delicate and anxious. The album appeared, leather cover, golden details. How beautiful, she exclaimed. She opened it. First page, a photo of the church before the ceremony. Second page, the arrival of the godparents. Third page, the bride getting ready. Wonderful. Donna Lucia gasped at every page. So Antonio looked over her shoulder, smiling, proud, happy. Pages turning, the entrance of the bride, the vows, the rings, the kiss, each moment perfectly captured. Roberto, you outdid yourself, so Antonio commented. Thank you. It was a pleasure to photograph. More pages. The exit from the church, the rice toss, the arrival at the reception. The tone shifted suddenly, completely, painfully. Donna Lucia stopped turning the pages. Sir Antonio leaned in to see better. Roberto still hadn't noticed. 10 seconds, 20, 30. What is this? Sir Antonio murmured. Roberto stood up, came closer, and saw the 3 enlarged photos, clear and undeniable. Him and Donna Lucia embracing in the garden, his hands on her waist, her hands around his neck. Him and Donna Lucia kissing, lips touching, bodies close. Him and Donna Lucia in an even more intimate moment, hands exploring faces of pleasure. Roberto's face turned pale, then flushed, then pale again. He looked at me, understanding slowly dawning. Donna Lucia tried to close the album. Seu Antonio held it back. I don't want to see this. Antonio. Can I explain? Explain? His voice was calm, the calm before the storm. Explain what, Lucia, that you were making out with the photographer in our garden? It was a moment of weakness. Moment? How many moments? How many afternoons? How many lies? Roberto tried to speak. Seu Antonio, please shut up. Now his voice thundered. In my house, in my garden, with my wife. The door opened. Christina walked in smiling. Dad, Mom? I heard raised voices. Everything stopped. She saw the tension, saw the open album, saw the photos. My God! Henry appeared behind her. Honey, what happened? Christina stood frozen, staring at the photos, absorbing it all, her expression shifting from confusion to realization to horror. Mom! Mom! Donna Lucia stood up, trying to approach her daughter. Daughter, let me explain. Don't come near me. The scream echoed through the room. Christina stepped back. Henry was furious. This is outrageous, he roared. What unprofessionalism to put photos like that in the album. I stayed calm. The other photos are perfect. Professional work, as always. Roberto pulled me aside. Let's leave now. I got up, grabbed my bag, walked to the door, then turned around. Excuse us, we're leaving. The silence in the car was heavy. Roberto drove like a man possessed, his hands clutching the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Was it you? That wasn't a question. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb, Madeline. You put those photos there. What photos? You know which photos. Oh, those! I thought they fit the album. Special moments, memories to keep. He slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop on the shoulder. You planned it all. Planned what? For you to have compromising photos taken? For you to flirt with a married woman? For you to betray me? He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Why? Why? 15 years, Roberto. 15 years pretending I didn't see, didn't know that it was just my imagination. But this time you crossed the line. It was a mistake, just a moment. How many moments? Marina Perry in 72, Teresa Santos in 73, our own cousin in 71. His jaw dropped, just as I always knew, always saw, but chose to ignore, for the sake of the kids, for the marriage, for my own foolishness. Madeline, you know what the last straw was? It wasn't you cheating on me. It was her humiliating me, treating me like a servant, and you laughing along, making me feel small in front of her. Silence returned. This time it carried guilt, heavy and thick with consequences. And now you're going to leave the house, leave the studio, and not cause a scene. Are you crazy? It's my studio, my work, our studio, our work that you destroyed all by yourself. I started the car. We drove home in silence. The phone rang as we entered. I answered. Oliveira Studio. Mrs. Madeline, this is Mr. Antonio. I wanted to apologize for what happened. You're not to blame, and if you need a witness for the divorce, you can count on me. Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Oh, and my ex-wife is moving to the farm, for good. I hung up and looked at Roberto. Did you hear? There's already a witness. The bomb had exploded. Now it was just a matter of letting the pieces settle and rebuilding on my terms. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Roberto slept on the studio couch that first night. The next day, he tried to talk, argue, even threaten me. But I had the proof. Not only the photos with Mrs. Lucia, but years of documented betrayals. How did you manage to get all this? He asked when I showed him the other folders. Little Joe, the assistant you fired for being late twice, he spilled everything, remember? He looked at the compromising photos and felt sorry for me. He started revealing things to me bit by bit. Roberto sank into the office chair. The vain man, always perfectly put together, now looked 10 years older. And you held on to all this time? Every negative, every piece of evidence. Marina Perry, the redhead from the 72 wedding, Teresa Santos, the bride's sister from 73, our cousin Teresa from 71. Do you want me to go on? He shook his head, defeated. The news spread through town like wildfire. Mrs. Carmen was the first to show up 2 days later with a cornmeal cake. I came to offer moral support, dear. How do you already know Mrs. Carmen? Oh, Madeline, in this town, the walls have ears. The Rodriguez maid told the cook at the club, who told the gardener, who informed my cleaning lady. It was to be expected. Ribeirão Preto, 1970, the town where everyone knew everyone. A scandal like this was the talk of the year. The hardest part was the kids. John, 14, was close to his father. He was upset with me at first. Why did you do this, Mom? You humiliated Dad in front of everyone. John, there are things between a husband and wife you don't understand yet. One day you will. He said I went crazy, that I ruined his life out of jealousy. I took a deep breath. How do you explain betrayal to a teenager? How do you protect your dad's image without lying? Son, your father made choices, wrong choices that hurt our family. I just brought the truth to light. Anna, 12, was more understanding. She had always been closer to me. Mom, everyone at school is talking about it. They say you were brave. And what do you think? I think you did the right thing. A man who cheats doesn't deserve any sympathy. So young and already so wise. Girls mature faster. Peter, 10, just wanted to know if there would still be food on the table and if he could keep playing soccer. Kids have simple priorities. Roberto tried to set up another studio on the other side of town, but without quality equipment, loyal clients, or me to organize everything, it didn't thrive. In 2 months later, I accepted an offer to work as a freelancer in São Paulo. I traveled there every weekend. The studio remained mine. I changed the name on the sign. From Studio Oliveira, it became Studio Madeline, my name finally, after years of being known only as Roberto's wife. The first month was tough. Many clients canceled. After all, it was Roberto who had the reputation as a photographer. I was just the assistant, the organizer, the one behind the scenes. But some women began to show up. At first, out of curiosity, I'll admit, they wanted to meet the woman who had the courage to expose her cheating husband. Then, because they liked my work. The first was Mrs. Marisa, the pharmacy owner's wife. Madeline. I came to book photos for my granddaughter's baptism. Mrs. Marisa. I appreciate your trust, but Roberto no longer works here. I know, dear, that's why I came. I always noticed that the photos you organized had something special, a sensitivity his lacked. That caught me off guard. What do you mean, dear? I have albums from 3 family weddings. The photos you chose, the way you arranged them, had soul. His were technically perfect but empty. It was a revelation. I always thought I was just the assistant, but apparently my eye made a difference. Mrs. Marissa's granddaughter's baptism was my first solo job. I prepared the equipment alone, carried everything, set up the lighting. My hands trembled a little, I confess. But when I looked through the camera lens, something magical happened. It was as if I had done this my whole life. And in a way I had, after all those years watching, learning, absorbing. Only now I was the one choosing the angle, the moment, the emotion to capture. I photographed differently from Roberto. He focused on poses, on technical perfection. I focused on moments, the grandmother holding the baby with tears in her eyes, the father nervously adjusting his son's outfit, the mother whispering a prayer, the little siblings on tiptoes trying to see better. When I developed the photos, I was surprised. They were better than I had imagined. They had something Roberto's photos rarely had, the truth. When I delivered the album, Mrs. Marissa cried, "Madeline, these photos are exactly how I remember the day. Every emotion, every detail." Roberto never managed to capture that. The news spread slowly but steadily. The women in town began to seek me out. Not out of pity, I realized, but because they truly valued my work. A month after the scandal, I got an unexpected visitor, Cristina Rodriguez. When I opened the door and saw her, my heart skipped a beat. Would this be a confrontation? Would she come to yell at me, blaming me for the ruin of her family? "Miss Madeline, may I come in?" She looked different. Thinner, with deep dark circles under her eyes. But there was something in her gaze that had changed, a determination that hadn't been there before. I offered her a seat, and we sat down in the studio's living room. "I came to thank you." "Thank me?" As I couldn't hide my surprise. "You saved my life." "How so?" "If it hadn't been for those photos in the album, I would have never known. My mother, she would have kept going. And do you know what I found out afterward?" I waited. She continued. "It wasn't the first time. There were others, many others. The gardener confessed he saw different men visiting when my father was away. The cook knew, everyone knew, except for me and my father." She took a sip of coffee. "Henry and I are doing well, even closer now. He supported me, helped me process everything. But what about my parents?" "Dad filed for divorce immediately. Mom is living alone on the farm with no staff because no one wants to work for her after the scandal. I'm so sorry." "Don't be. It's better this way." "Dad is happier, lighter. He even quit smoking. And I learned to see people as they really are, not to be blinded by appearances." We were silent for a moment. "Miss Madeline, I have a request." "Of course. Would you photograph our first wedding anniversary? Henry and I want to celebrate our true love, and we want authentic photos, just the way only you can capture." I agreed, moved. It was more than a job. It was recognition, validation. Their anniversary was beautiful and intimate, just close family and true friends. I photographed as I had always dreamed, without forced poses, without artificiality. Just love, closeness, and truth. The photos came out stunning. Christina and Henry loved them. And more importantly, they told everyone who had taken their photos. From then on, my clientele grew steadily. The daughters of my old clients, their daughters-in-law, their nieces. A new generation seeking photos with feeling, not just pretty poses. I hired an assistant, Lucia, a 20-year-old who had just graduated in art. She had the same passion I once had. The same attentive gaze, the same sensitivity. "You remind me of someone," I told her on the first day. "Who?" "Me 20 years ago. But you have something I didn't have." "What?" "The courage to be yourself from the very start." I taught her everything. Techniques, tricks, but mostly how to see beyond the obvious. How to capture the soul, not just the image. Money was tight at first, I won't lie. Without Roberto's support, with 3 kids to take care of, I had to juggle a lot. But I discovered something interesting. Without his wild parties, unnecessary spending, and risky investments, I had more left over. Roberto tried to come back 6 months later. He showed up on a Wednesday afternoon thinner, his hair starting to gray, without the arrogant attitude he once had. "We need to talk, Madeline." "About what?" "I want to come back." I almost laughed, but held it back. "Come back where?" "Roberto, home to you, to the studio, to our life. Our life ended the day you decided I wasn't enough. It was a mistake with Lucia, with the others. I admit that, but we have 15 years of marriage. The kids need their father. The kids have a father. You see them every weekend. It's not the same. No, it's not, but that was your choice. Madeline, please, I'm sorry. I will never betray you again. I've learned my lesson. I looked hard at him, at the man I once loved, with whom I had children and built a life, and I saw clearly, Roberto, you're not sorry for cheating on me. You're sorry for getting caught, for losing comfort, for having to work for someone else. It's different. How can you say that? Because I know you. 15 years, remember? I know when you're lying, and you're lying now. He tried to argue, more promised, change, swore eternal love. Empty words from a desperate man. I didn't give in. I would never give in again. The divorce papers arrived 2 months later. I signed them with relief, finally free. Finally, I was myself. The studio thrived beyond my expectations. I took advanced courses in São Paulo at over 40, among people the age of my children. But it didn't matter. I was learning, growing, discovering talents I didn't even know I had. Clients referred me to others. Word of mouth worked better than any advertisement. Look for Madeline. She takes unique photos. With Madeline, you feel at ease. Madeline captures what others can't see. I renovated the studio, painted the walls white, added plants, and created a cozy atmosphere. The clients loved it. They said it felt like home, not a cold studio. John eventually understood and supported me. He enrolled in engineering school. Anna became a teacher. She had always said she wanted to teach. Peter joined the army. Discipline was always his strong suit. Roberto remarried 5 years later to a 25-year-old woman. They had another child. He divorced 3 years later when she ran off with a neighbor. Karma, maybe, poetic justice for sure. But the best was yet to come. The recognition that would change everything the moment I stopped being just a photographer and became an artist. It was an ordinary Tuesday in 1978. 3 years had passed since the separation. The studio was bustling. I had more clients than I could handle by myself. I had to hire 2 assistants in addition to Lucia. We worked late almost every day. I was in the archive organizing negatives when someone knocked on the door. It was 2 in the afternoon, a quiet time. Usually no one showed up then. I opened the door, expecting a salesperson or a delivery person. It was a tall man in his 50s with a neatly trimmed gray beard, a spotless gray suit, polished shoes, and a leather briefcase in hand. He carried a distinguished air, unlike anyone else in town. Ms. Madeline Oliveira? Yes, sir. How can I help you? My name is Charles Edwards. I'm a curator at the Paulista Gallery of Art in São Paulo. I came here especially to speak with you. I thought it was a joke or a mistake. An art gallery? A curator? For me? There must be some mistake, sir. I'm just an event photographer. He smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. There's no mistake, Ms. Madeline. May I come in? I'd like to discuss your work. I led him to the waiting room and offered him coffee. He accepted. While I made it, my mind was racing. What did an art curator want with me? Ms. Madeline, I'll get straight to the point. He opened his briefcase and pulled out several photos. My photos. Are these images yours? I looked at Tonita. They were photos I had taken over the past 2 years. The baptism of Donna Marisa's granddaughter, Christina's wedding anniversary, the first communion of the Silva twins, among other events. Yes, they are mine, but how did you find out? A friend of mine, Helen Duarte, an art critic, was at a wedding here last month. The mayor's daughter's wedding, if I'm not mistaken. She was impressed with the album and asked to see more of my work. The family showed her other albums made by me. The name sounded vaguely familiar. I must have seen it in some magazine. She called me the same day. She said she had discovered something extraordinary. A photographer from the countryside of São Paulo creating art without even realizing it. She mailed me the photos. When I saw them, I had to come in person. But Mr. Carlos, they are just family photos, baptisms, weddings. Exactly. He leaned forward, excited. That's what makes them extraordinary. You capture something that most professional photographers can't. Pure emotion, raw truth, humanity. He picked up a specific photo. It was from the mayor's daughter's wedding, the exact moment when the groom saw the bride entering his face transformed by love. This photo here, Ms. Madeline, looked closely at the natural composition. The light coming through the window, illuminating just his face, the expression of pure ecstasy. It looks like a Renaissance painting. Renaissance? I wasn't even sure what that meant. It's the best kind of visual anthropology. You document the Brazilian soul, rites of passage, the sacred moments of everyday life. Visual anthropology, another unfamiliar term. I came to make a proposal. I want to organize an exhibition of your work at the Galleria Paulista, one of the most prestigious galleries in São Paulo. Working title, Portraits of the Brazilian Soul. Just your photos. I almost spilled my coffee. An exhibition in an art gallery? But I'm not an artist, Mr. Carlos. I'm a commercial photographer. I've never studied art. You're self-taught. That makes your work even more valuable. It's not influenced by academic trends. It's pure, authentic, visceral. He spent the next hour explaining how the art market worked, what authorial photography was, and why my work was unique. He showed examples of other photographers who started by documenting everyday life and became iconic figures. Do you know August Sander, Diane Arbus? They also photographed ordinary people. Today, their work is in museums all over the world. I had never heard of them. My references were Roberto and the wedding photographers from the region. Art used to feel distant something for educated people in big cities. I needed to think it over, of course, but let me share a few practical details first. He explained that the gallery would cover all costs: enlargements, frames, transport, and publicity. The proceeds from any sales would be split 50-50, which he assured me was standard in the market. Sell? People do buy photographs, Ms. Madeline. Collectors pay fortunes for quality photos, especially those that capture the essence of a time, of a people, just like yours. Before leaving, he handed me a business card and a folder containing reviews of my photos by the critic Helen Duarte. Later, I read phrases like extraordinary sensitivity, innate anthropological insight, and social document of inestimable value. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at my photos with new eyes. Could it be? Those images I instinctively created without thinking about art actually had artistic value? I called Anna. She was finishing her master's in education in São Paulo. Mom, this is amazing news. You have to accept. It's a unique opportunity. But sweetheart, I don't know anything about art. Won't they laugh at me, a rural photographer wanting to be an artist? Mom, art has no C. It doesn't matter where it's made. And besides, you're not trying to be an artist. You already are. You just didn't realize it. John was more cautious. He was always suspicious of strangers. Be careful, Mom. It could be a scam. People from São Paulo trying to take advantage of you. A scam? John, he didn't ask for money. On the contrary, he's paying for everything. I don't know. Read the contract carefully before signing anything. Peter from the barracks was straightforward as always. Go for it, Mom. Show those city folks that the countryside has culture too. You deserve it. I spent a week thinking, reading about art and photography. I discovered there was a whole world I didn't know. Photographers recognized as artists, exhibitions in museums, private collections. In the end, what made my decision was simple. Why not? What did I have to lose? If it didn't work out, I'd keep running my studio. If it did, I called Carlos Eduardo. I said yes. The preparations took 3 months. I had to select the photos, sign contracts that John read line by line, and make special enlargements on imported paper. Carlos came to Ribeirão Preto twice. He spent hours with me looking at negatives, choosing images, explaining concepts, composition, visual storytelling, and curation. This sequence here showed pictures of a wedding. It tells a complete story: the groom's nervousness, the parents' anticipation, the emotion of the entrance, the relief of the... Yes, it's cinema in photographs. I learned that my photos had something called punctum, the detail that touches you, that moves you, that stays in your memory. Roland Barthes. I discovered a French philosopher who wrote about photography. The exhibition was scheduled for December, a week before I traveled to São Paulo. I stayed in a modest hotel downtown. I was terrified. Me, Madeline, from the countryside, in an elegant gallery in the capital. I went to the gallery the day before to see the setup. When I walked in, I lost my breath. My photos on the white walls, professionally lit and framed in fine wood, looked different, larger, important. The photo of the groom seeing the bride had become the centerpiece, enlarged to 1 meter by 5 meters. The emotion on his face jumped off the wall. It turned out beautiful, didn't it? Carlos appeared beside me. It doesn't look like my photo. It looks like art. Because it is art, Madeline. It always was. The frame and the lighting only highlight what was already there. The opening was on a Thursday at 6 p.m. at Cocotil. I bought a special black dress for the occasion, medium heels, red lipstick. I looked at myself in the hotel mirror. I didn't look like myself. I looked like someone important. I arrived at the gallery at 6 to 15. There were already people, a lot of people. Men in dark suits, elegant women, glasses of champagne, canapes whose names I didn't even know. Madeline, Carlos came to greet me. You look beautiful. Come, I want to introduce you to the press. The press? Cultural reporters from major newspapers, photographers snapping pictures of the photographer, microphones, questions. How did you develop this unique style? What are your artistic influences? Do you intend to continue documenting the countryside? I was honest. I said I didn't have a style. I just photographed what I saw, that I hadn't known great photographers until recently, and that my influence was life. I learned by looking, living, feeling. My university was the studio where I worked with my ex-husband. My postgraduate degree was the life of a mother and a woman. I thought they would find me simplistic, but they were fascinated. The story of a woman from the countryside who discovered herself as an artist at 43, who transformed pain into art, who documented life without pretensions. I saw people stopping in front of the photos, contemplating, some getting emotional. An elegant woman paused in front of a photo of a grandmother cradling her grandchild, took a handkerchief from her bag and wiped her eyes. "That's my mother," she said as I approached. The way she held my child captured the essence of universal maternal love. An important critic from São Paulo spent half an hour analyzing the wedding sequence. It was amazing how each photo flowed into the next. It was a visual symphony. "Do you have a background in cinema?" "No, sir. I've never studied anything beyond the basics." Incredible. A natural talent. That's rare to see. Carlos showed up, beaming, around 8 p.m. "Madeline, we sold 12 photos, 12 at the opening. It's an absolute success. 12 photos for prices I never imagined possible, more than I earned in 2 months working at the studio." The response was overwhelming. Articles appeared in major newspapers. "Photographer from the countryside shakes up São Paulo. Art emerges where least expected. The sensitive eye of Madeline." The reviews were unanimous. Sensitive work, unique perspective, important social documentation, unintentional visual anthropology. Of course, Roberto found out. Everyone in Ribeirão Preto knew. He contacted me 2 weeks after the exhibition. "I saw the articles about the exhibition. Congratulations." "Thank you. I always knew you had talent." That's a lie. He never knew, never saw. To him, I was just the assistant, the one who organized, the one who took care of the boring stuff. "It's impressive," he said. "You used our work like that? My work, Roberto, has always been mine. You pressed the button on yours. I saw the soul in mine." He left without saying anything more. I think he finally understood what he had lost. Life changed after the exhibition. I continued with the studio in Ribeirão Preto, but now it was different. People came from far away. They wanted to be photographed by the countryside artist. I could charge more and choose my projects. I had other exhibitions in Belo Horizonte, in Rio, a group show in Buenos Aires. I traveled, saw the world, things I never imagined doing when I was just Roberto's wife. The money from the photo sales helped. I renovated the house, bought better equipment, sent the kids to good universities, everything Roberto said we couldn't afford. But the most important thing wasn't the money or the recognition, it was the example. My children saw their mother reinvent herself at 43. They realized it's never too late to discover new talents, that a woman who has been abandoned can become even more than she was when she was married. Today, 40 years later, my photographs are part of important collections. The São Paulo Museum of Art, the Gilberto Chateaubriand collection, the Moreira Salles Institute, becoming a subject of study. There's even a master's thesis about my work. And to think it all started as an act of revenge, with compromising photos placed in a wedding album. Sometimes an ending is really just a new beginning in disguise. Pain can transform into art. Betrayal can lead to freedom. But there was still one chapter missing from this story. The most unexpected one, the reunion that would close the circle. It was 2010. I had just turned 69. A lifetime had passed since that fateful day in 1975, when I put the photos in the album. The studio remained successful now, mainly managed by Lucia, who had moved from assistant to partner. I still took photographs, but only for special projects. Clients who came from far away, who knew my artistic work and wanted a Madeline, as my photos had come to be known. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was organizing a retrospective to mark my 35-year career when the phone rang. Madeline Studio, good afternoon. This is Solar de Mina's retirement home. My name is Nurse Claudia. Yes? Are you related to Donna Lucia Rodriguez? And the name stopped me for a moment. Lucia Rodriguez, the woman I had ruined. Roberto's lover, the mother of the bride from that fateful wedding. No, I'm not related. Why do you ask? Well, Donna Lucia has been with us for 2 years, suffering from advanced Alzheimer's. Yesterday, in a rare moment of clarity, she insisted on speaking with you. She said it is urgent and that she needs to tell you something before it's too late. My first reaction was to decline. Why would I want to see that woman after 35 years? What could she possibly want from me? Well, I appreciate the call, but please, Donna Madeline, the nurse's voice softened. She's very sick. Moments of clarity are becoming less and less common. Yesterday was the first time in months she spoke clearly, and she kept repeating your name. Something in the nurse's voice moved me, or maybe it was curiosity, or perhaps the need to close this chapter. Where is the retirement home located? I asked. On the city's outskirts, heading toward Jardinopolis. Do you know it? I did. I had passed by there many times. A simple place, but with a good reputation. Can I come tomorrow morning? Of course, I'll let the team know. Thank you so much, Mrs. Madeline. I hung up, lost in thought. Lucia Rodriguez, the proud, elegant woman who treated me like a servant who stole my husband, whom I publicly humiliated, now old and ill, was calling me. The next day I drove to the nursing home, a well-kept building from the 60s with a garden in front and rocking chairs on the porch. Very different from the mansion where she used to live. Nurse Claudia greeted me, young, friendly, in uniform. Mrs. Madeline, it's great that you came, Mrs. Lucia had a restless night, but she's awake now. She took me through clean but simple hallways. The smell of disinfectant mingled with something indefinable. The scent of old age, perhaps the scent of the end of life. How is she? Physically weak. Alzheimer's is progressing, but yesterday, for a few hours, she was completely lucid. It was surprising. We stopped at a door. 427. This is it. I'll leave you alone. If you need anything, just press the button. I entered slowly. The room was small but airy. There was a hospital bed, an armchair, and a small table with picture frames. On the bed, a figure I could barely recognize. Her platinum blonde hair was now white and thinning. The body that was once curvy was now frail, lost in a hospital gown. The eyes that once shone with pride were now dull, lost. Mrs. Lucia, her eyes locked onto me. For a moment, nothing. Then, as if a light switched on, recognition. Madeline. The voice was a hoarse whisper. You came? I moved closer. I sat in the chair next to the bed. Not for her, for me, to hear what she had to say to close the chapter. I'm here. I need to tell you something. A cough interrupted her. I grabbed the glass of water on the table and helped her drink. Her hands trembled. You don't have to tell me anything, Mrs. Lucia. The past is the past. No. The vehemence surprised me. Yes, I have to. Before I forget again. Before it's too late. I waited. She took a deep breath. Roberto, your husband, he wasn't the only one. That didn't surprise me. I had already guessed as much. I have had many affairs, many men throughout my marriage. Why? The question slipped out before I could stop it. A bitter smile crossed her wrinkled face. Power, boredom, revenge. Antonio, my husband, he had lovers first, many. I accepted it as long as he was discreet. It was part of our agreement. Agreement? A marriage of convenience. His family needed my money. My family needed his name. We respected each other, but there was never any love. He took another sip of water. Roberto was different from the others. Why? Because with him I felt something. Not love, but real desire, passion. The others were just games, conquests. With him, it was real. It is real. That's why it hurt so much when I saw those photos. We fell silent, me processing, her remembering. Do you know what happened next? I know she got divorced and moved to the farm. Antonio never forgave me, not for the betrayal. He knew about the others, but it was the public humiliation, the scandal. that he could not forgive. Another pause. More water. Roberto contacted me later. 2 weeks after the scandal. I was surprised. He wanted money to set up a new studio, to start over. He said he lost everything because of me. And you? I declined. I had no money left. Antonio controlled everything after the divorce. A minimal allowance, just enough to survive, not to live. And he got furious, threatened me. He said he would expose other secrets, that he would ruin what was left of my reputation. The story was taking turns I didn't expect. Antonio found out and sent, men to scare him. Men went after him, which is why he fled to São Paulo. So, Roberto didn't leave by choice. He escaped. Cristina, my daughter. Tears started rolling down her wrinkled face. She never spoke to me again. 35 years, not even at her father's funeral did she let me get close. It must have been hard. Hard? She laughed, a sound without humor. It was hell. I lost everything. Family, friends, social status, money. I was alone on the farm for 20 years. When Antonio died, I found out he left everything to the children. For me, a minimal pension. It barely covered this nursing home. I looked around, the simple room, few belongings, so different from the luxury I once knew. My grandchildren don't even know me. Great-grandchildren? Yes. Cristina married well, had 3 children, all educated, successful. And here I am, alone, forgotten. Why did you want to see me? She looked at me. In her tired eyes, I saw something I never expected. Admiration. Because you succeeded? I saw it in the newspapers over the years. A famous artist exhibiting in Europe, educated children, respected, admired, everything I never was. Ma'am, Lucia, no, let me finish. I need to say, you were better than me. You always were. I had beauty money status, but you had something I never did. What? Dignity? Real strength? Talent? I was just a facade. You were the essence. You took my hand, dry, cold, stained skin. Forgive me, Madeline, for what I did, for who I was, for the arrogance, for the cruelty. Forgive me. I looked at the woman lying in bed. She was no longer the proud Dona Lucia I once knew. She was just a sick, lonely, regretful old woman. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, Dona Lucia, but it eases the present. I forgive you. Not for you, but for myself, to set myself completely free. She closed her eyes. A small smile appeared. Thank you. You don't know the weight of all these years. We stayed silent for a few minutes. She looked like she was asleep. I got up to leave. Madeline, I turned around. Tell Cristina. Tell her that her mother asks for forgiveness, that she always loved her, that she misses her. If I get the chance, I will. I left, deep in thought, sitting in the car. I sat still for a few minutes, processing an entire life, an entire story. In the end, we were just 2 old women, one a winner, one a loser, but both marked by the same events. 2 weeks later, Nurse Claudia called. Dona Lucia had died in her sleep. Peaceful, she said, at peace. I didn't go to the funeral. It wasn't my place, but I sent flowers, white lilies. Why lilies? Because they symbolize rebirth. And in a way, we were both reborn from that scandal. She into disgrace, I into glory. I heard that Cristina had a quiet burial, just with close family. Roberto didn't go. He was abroad working on a cruise ship as a photographer. Life went on. The retrospective of my 35-year career was a success. At the opening held in São Paulo, the entire cultural elite was present. My children proud, my grandchildren in awe. Roberto showed up. I didn't expect it, but he came. 70 years old. Completely white hair, bent over the old charm, long gone. Congratulations, Madeline. Thank you for coming. You know, I always regretted it. I know. No, you don't. It's not just about the betrayal. It's about not having seen, not having realized. You've always been extraordinary, and I was too blind to see it. I looked at the man I once loved, who betrayed me, whom I tried to destroy, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no longing, just a faint pity. Roberto, I'm going to tell you something. You did me a favor, unknowingly, unwittingly, but you did. If you hadn't betrayed me, I would never have discovered myself. She would have remained just the photographer's wife to this day. So, in a way, thank you. He looked at me, surprised. Are you thanking me for your freedom? Yes. He fell silent, processing, then smiled, a sad smile. So I was useful for something. Everyone is useful for something. Sometimes we only realize it too late. I said goodbye. I had other guests to greet. I left him there, amidst the elegant crowd, alone. Carlos Eduardo, my curator and friend for decades, gave an emotional speech. Madeline is living proof that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. She began her artistic career at 43, when many believe life is already set. Now, at 69, she is one of the most respected photographers in Brazil. Her images are displayed in museums and important collections. But more than that, her story inspires, showing that the greatest achievements can come from the deepest pain. Applause, toasts, photos, life coming full circle. That night at the hotel, I reflected on everything. The discovery of betrayal, the revenge, the separation, the discovery of talent, success, forgiveness. What was my true revenge? It wasn't the photos in the album, it wasn't the scandal, it wasn't keeping the studio. It was living well, becoming greater than my pain, turning humiliation into art, proving that a betrayed woman is not a defeated woman. Now, at 84, I share this story with you watching. Not to brag, but to inspire, to show that an ending can be a new beginning, that pain can be fuel, and that it's never too late to be reborn. If you're facing betrayal, humiliation, loss, know this: it's not the end. It could be the freedom you needed, the push toward your true destiny. Don't give up. Don't undervalue yourself. Don't accept less than you deserve. You can be more than you imagine. You just need to discover it. And remember, the best revenge is to be happy. It's to live well. It's to become the best version of yourself. Thank you for watching this far. I hope my story inspires yours. Like, share with those who need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. And remember, as long as there is life, there is hope for a fresh start.